Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in again. I usually don't deliberately stray away from what I think are controversial issues. I just talk about what I want to talk about, what's of interest to me. Today, I have picked a very controversial subject to focus on, and not because it's controversial, because it's been in the news as of late, and I've tried to ignore it for a month. And the fact that it is controversial is not why I try to avoid it. It's because it's just not that interesting to me. It doesn't affect me. And people get so excited, angry, one way or the other about the issue. So it's something that, because I don't have strong feelings about, I tend to just try to stay out of it. But yes, like everybody else, I have an opinion about abortion. I would say about a month ago in January, the New York state legislature voted into law the ability for women to have late-term abortions up to and including aborting the baby on or by the due date. It used to be where, you can have an abortion, a woman can have an abortion up until her 5th month, about the 4th or 5th month. That's usually the cutoff. And shortly after the New York legislature made their decision, and actually they brought down the House. I mean, there was people applauding. They were so excited that women could engage in infanticide. But shortly after that happened, then this governor, I believe, of West Virginia, spoke on a radio show and created a lot more anger for those people who were pro-life by saying that women that do have the baby, in other words, babies who survive the abortion, should have the right to decide whether after the baby is born, if the baby should still be aborted. That sounds so outrageous, and forgive me if I'm getting his intentions or what he was trying to articulate wrong, but I don't think I am getting it wrong. He felt that the woman should still have the right to decide whether that baby is murdered even outside the womb. Then that governor was exposed as potentially a racist because there was pictures of him of him standing with somebody, and I don't know who is who, because one's wearing a Klansman's outfit, and the other person in the picture is in blackface. So he initially apologized for it, and then he came out a day or two later saying he wasn't the one in the picture. I'm like, why would you then apologize for it initially? He should have denied it from the start. Who wouldn't? I mean, this is something from the 80s. This was a picture, I don't know how long ago, but it's the same thing that happened to Brett Kavanaugh. They're trying to dig up stuff that happened way back to try to discredit him. I don't even know who leaked these pictures, but there was calls for him to resign, not over what he said about the abortion, but what actually was just seen in a picture of him from many years ago. He may not even think that way anymore, but it's pretty scary if he ever thought that way at all. And then his lieutenant governor, who was poised to take his place, a story leaked on him as well, that he had sexually harassed a woman or something. And I think there's even been calls for him to resign. And then a news story broke about this Empire actor, never even heard of him, Jussie Smollett, and he made some bogus claims about being attacked, and he filed some hate crime police report based on him being gay and black, and saying that some MAGA hat wearing people attacked him and put a noose around his neck. So there's a lot of racial issues going on here that I'm going to talk a little bit about later as well. I've talked about abortion before in my Balance of Power video when I talked about the confirmation process of Justice Kavanaugh and how that was upsetting the pro-choice people. And I was saying at the time that I didn't believe that his being appointed would have any bearing on that issue. It's something that we all feel very strongly about, probably since the beginning of time, or at least until abortions started happening. And it's an issue that will rage on until the end of time, probably. One thing that you may have noticed about me is that I'm a problem solver. I don't like to keep the issues going. However, I'm just someone here talking in a video. There's really nothing I can do other than to talk on the video, and hopefully I can persuade enough people to agree with me. You know, I'm not trying to take sides here. I mean, I really want anyone to tune in and enjoy watching my videos, but I know an issue like this, if I take sides, I'm only going to have one group of people watching, and it's really not my objective to get as many people watching. It's just my objective really to share my views. But I'm not deliberately trying to upset either side. Now, I probably did upset the pro-life side when I talked about a little bit about my views on pro-choice. And I haven't watched the video since I recorded it, but I'm sure I know what I said, because my opinions seldom change, and it takes years for them to change. Now, my opinions on abortion have changed, because when I first formulated opinion about it at all, I can think back as far as a teenager, I used to go on what was then called bulletin board systems. I don't know if I've ever talked about this before, but it was the precursor to the internet. And people had computers in their home, and they would connect them to a landline, and you can dial up to their computer from your computer. And I used to do that. In fact, I was a system operator. I operated my own bulletin board system called Silent Morning. And I remember there's a really great website that I liked called, not a website. See, I've been so conditioned now to think the internet. There was a BBS, a bulletin board system that I like called the Rising Sun. And I remember I used to go on there, and you know, there was no pictures or anything online back then, or any streaming of, you know, audio or video content back then. But you were able to have conversations back and forth with people, kind of like Facebook, right? You could write a message and people could respond to that message. You could write it privately, you can write it publicly. And we were talking about abortion then. This goes back to the 80s now. That's like 30 years ago, right? And I was very pro-life at the time. And I remember even writing a paper, I don't know if it was for school or what, why I supported pro-life. And but over the years I've changed, and a lot of it has to do with just recognizing that you know, a woman does have a right to do what she wants with her body, but there is a competing interest here. There is the rights of the baby, and that was what I was so focused on at the time. But I have come to accept that women have a right as well, and also I look at society as a whole and how all these unwanted children having to be born, how that can affect society and affect us all. So it's very easy to just say, oh, women shouldn't have the right to choose and every baby should be born. And I think I said this as well. Some of those babies are going to be raised by a mother that never wanted him or her. They're not going to there may not be a father in the home. Or there could be two parents arguing, not being able to financially support themselves and the baby. And that baby can become damaged and grow up to be a burden on society and perhaps even violent. Maybe they can be adopted. Maybe the parents get it together and are able to care for that child. But that is a risk. And sometimes the parents themselves are so damaged, there's no hope that they'll ever be able to successfully raise a child. So I'm just being pragmatic, but I never meant to imply in that last video that I was pro-abortion, just, pro-choice, because there's a lot of valid reasons why women should not have the baby. But, abortion is not a form of birth control. It should be rare. Women should be more careful. Couples should be more careful when they engage in sexual activity, use protection to avoid the pregnancy. But if it happens, there's got to be options for the woman. But I think that those are decisions that can be made within the first few months. And I just do not agree with waiting until the due date to decide not to have the baby. Now, that may be a decision that may still even need to be a choice even under those circumstances, but it's got to be between the woman and the doctor and the family, and the woman's life has to be in danger. The woman has to be there has to be a high likelihood that she will not survive the pregnancy and will, or the birthing of that baby, and will die. And then, if a life is going to be lost, the woman has to be able to decide whether she wants it to be hers or her baby's. That's how I feel, but I'm trying to find a compromise here. I am someone who, I'm not a woman, so I don't need to make that choice. I will never, I don't foresee ever marrying. I haven't yet, so why would I? Or having children. So I'm never going to have to make the decision. So maybe if I were one of those groups, someone that either was a woman or a man who's likely to impregnate a woman, maybe I would feel differently. I don't know. Or maybe because I'm completely detached, I can think this through a little bit less emotionally. I don't think that anyone watching this video will be swayed one way or another. I guess my message to everyone is just try to be willing to compromise a little bit and give a little bit. Understand that every life has value. This baby can be born and become a contributing member to society. And also consider that the baby may be born into a family that can't care for him, that may go ahead and raise him and may not raise him or her right, and they may grow up to be an ongoing burden to society. Anyway, I'm beginning to repeat myself. So when this came up, I did a little research up on Margaret Sanger, because she is the founder, I understand, the founder of Planned Parenthood, which does a lot of abortions. They say they do a lot of other things, but it's said that they mostly do perform abortions. And so a lot of pro-life people don't want their tax-paying money to go to fund Planned Parenthood because they are getting government funding. And I looked into Margaret Sanger's history, and a lot of people say she's a racist, and that's racism is another polarizing issue in this country, and you know, maybe I should be a little bit more emotional about it because I am a minority, but I have never lived life as a minority. I've always just thought of myself as an American like anybody else. So much so that I think as myself as being the majority, the minority as being them, right? And I think I'm treated like part of the majority, but I know what I am. I know I'm a minority, and I know these things apply to me, and I believe that I have been the victim of racism. And the difference between the racism issue and the abortion issue is that the sad thing about racism is that I think that issue could be resolved. But I believe that there are a lot of people that are very against racism, and they've made a living being against racism, so they have a interest in keeping that issue alive. Whereas abortion, I don't think that issue will ever be resolved, really, because there's always, you know, as long as procreation exists, there's always going to be women that need to make a decision whether to have a baby or not, and there's always going to be circumstances wherein they believe that it's not in their best interest to have that baby. So Margaret Sanger is said to have been a racist, and I've tried to independently verify this, and I see no evidence of it. Okay, I've seen pictures online of her giving speeches at the Ku Klux Klan, but given today's technology and photoshopping this and that, I don't even know if to believe that. I'd rather see video, and the only video I ever see of Margaret Sanger is an interview with Mike Wallace or Mike Douglas, I'm not sure what his name is, that was done in the late 50s. And I guess the reason why there isn't a lot of video that we could watch is because this woman, I believe, was born close to the turn of the century. Not this century, last century, the 1900s. So she died like in the 60s. So I don't think she had a lot of opportunity to repeatedly speak on camera. But she was of the opinion that even women that want to have babies shouldn't be having them, provided that they've already had like 2 babies. I think she didn't feel any women should have more than 2 children due to population control, and that's an argument that somewhat resonates with me. Overpopulation could be a problem. I don't think it is, but it could be a problem. Has been in China. India has a lot of people as well, billions. And so she started out advocating for women having less children, and then it kind of morphed into being pro-abortion. And as a basis for promoting abortion, she said that, she referred to them as undesirables and weeds, people that are born deformed. But then there's people that would like to say that she was kind of speaking in code. And what she really wanted was to suppress the black race and minorities and just promote the furtherance of the white race, of Europeans. Those were the people that should be allowed to procreate, and these minorities shouldn't. And making abortion available would disproportionately affect the masses, and a lot of minorities would be the one that would ultimately have the abortions. But I don't know if that's true, because a lot of times minorities are low-income people. They're not very well educated, and I hate to tell you, a lot of times people that are not very well educated rely on faith and religion, and those are the kind of people that are unlikely to want to have abortions. So I really don't know that that idea really worked for them. But these days, everyone from every socioeconomic group and color and race has abortions. And I really believe it's here to stay. I believe it needs to be a tool available to women, but it needs to be done in rare circumstances, and it should not be done in the third trimester. That's my opinion, and hopefully this will be the last time I discuss the issue. But like I said, it has come up in the news, and I decided that I would try to dedicate one video entirely to the subject. So I want to thank you for watching and listening, and I totally understand if you're not agreeing, this time anyway. All right, so hopefully when we get together again, we will cover something a little bit more lighthearted, as I have been doing lately. So that is all I have for you today, and I thank you for listening.
Abortion has been legal in the U.S. since 1973. Before that, legalization varied from state to state. My birth was at risk because although my conception was in 1970, I was conceived in New York, which was one of the first two states to legalize abortion, and that was in 1970. Thankfully, despite my parents having recently immigrated to the U.S. and being poor, decided to have a second child. I am grateful to have been allowed to live, otherwise you would have not seen my video and would be right now doing something far less interesting.